It was a hot Tuesday afternoon in Lagos. The sun outside was bright and harsh, and the sound of traffic from the main road could be heard faintly through the windows. Inside the living room of the large duplex, it was cool. The air conditioner was on, and the house smelled like fresh polish and air freshener. The television was on, but the volume was low. Nobody was watching. Mirabelle lay on the big leather couch like a queen. She wore a short silk robe that shimmered in the light. Her legs were stretched out, and one foot rested lazily on the edge of the cushion. Her face was smooth, and her makeup was perfect, even though she hadn't gone anywhere all day. Her long, red nails tapped on her phone screen as she scrolled through Instagram. In her other hand, she held a glass of chilled pineapple juice. She sipped slowly, not even looking up. Mama Grace walked into the living room with small, slow steps. She was an old woman, in her late 60s, with tired eyes and a bent back. Her wrapper was faded, and her scarf was tied loosely over her gray hair. In her hands, she carried a tray with 2 glasses of clean water from the dispenser. She had just finished mopping the kitchen floor, but she didn't complain. She never did, Ma, Mama Grace said softly. Here is the water you asked for. Mirabelle didn't even look at her. Her eyes stayed glued to her phone. I said I don't want water from this house, she snapped. How many times do I have to say it? I only drink bottled table water. Mama Grace paused, confused. But the dispenser is working well, Ma. The water is clean, Mirabelle's head snapped up. Her eyes were sharp like razor blades. Are you okay? Did I ask you to talk? Do you think we're mates? If I say I don't want the water, then I don't want it. Or are you deaf? Mama Grace's lips trembled. She looked down quickly, holding back the words rising in her throat. She had worked in many homes, but this girl was something else. Still, she said nothing. Now go outside and buy bottled water. Go to the shop down the street. And make sure it's the one I like, not that cheap rubbish you people like to buy. Yes, Ma, Mama Grace said quietly. She picked a few crumpled naira notes from the glass center table and walked slowly toward the door. Her slippers had broken earlier that day, so she went barefoot. The ground outside was hot, but she said nothing. She stepped out into the sun, into the busy street, carrying only the money and the pain in her heart. Inside, Mirabelle smiled at a funny post on her phone and sipped her juice. The night was quiet. The street outside the house had finally gone calm, with only the soft hum of distant generators and the occasional barking of dogs in the background. Inside the house, all the lights were off, except for the faint glow coming from a hallway bulb. The living room was dark, and the cool air from the AC had started to fade. Mama Grace lay on a thin mat on the cold kitchen floor. There was no mattress, no pillow, just her wrapper folded under her head. Her legs ached from standing all day. Her back hurt from bending to scrub the bathroom earlier that evening. She turned slowly on the mat, trying to find a comfortable position. Her stomach growled quietly. She had only eaten a small plate of gari and groundnuts before going to bed. Suddenly, there was a loud sound. Bang! The door to Mama Grace's flew open with force. Get up. Mirabelle's voice echoed through the house like thunder. Mama Grace sat up quickly, heart beating fast. Her eyes blinked as they adjusted to the light coming from the hallway. Mirabelle stood there in her short silk pajamas, holding her phone in one hand and scratching her shoulder with the other. "My back is itching," she snapped. "Come and scratch it for me." Now, Mama Grace stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. She didn't say a word. As she walked toward Mirabelle, still half asleep, her foot bumped the edge of a stool. She staggered slightly, and that was enough. Slap, the sound of the slap echoed in the hallway. Mirabelle's hand was still in the air as Mama Grace held her cheek in shock. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. "You're too slow. You old, useless woman," Mirabelle hissed. "You're only good at pretending to be tired. You don't deserve this job. If not for my fiancé, I would have thrown you out since." Mama Grace lowered her head, breathing deeply to hold her tears in. Without a word, she stepped behind Mirabelle and began to gently scratch her back. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the quiet pain she carried in her heart. She looked at the wall ahead of her as she walked, silent, empty, still, and in that silence, her thoughts spoke louder than words. The next day, the house was filled with the smell of freshly cooked food. Mama Grace had spent hours in the kitchen, stirring the stew, cutting vegetables, and making sure everything was just right. She had learned long ago that the best way to get through the day was to stay quiet, do her work, and keep her head down. Mirabelle, however, didn't care about any of that. She was hungry and impatient. As she walked into the kitchen, she noticed the steaming pot of stew on the stove. Her stomach rumbled, but her face showed no sign of kindness. "What's this?" Mirabelle asked, picking up the spoon from the counter. She dipped it into the pot and tasted a bit of the stew. Her eyes immediately widened in disgust. She spat the stew out onto the floor with a loud noise. "This is terrible," she yelled, her voice rising. "Are you trying to kill me? What kind of salty mess is this?" She threw the spoon hard into the sink, where it clattered against the metal. Mama Grace stood at the counter, her hands still busy with chopping onions. She hadn't expected praise, but this was too much. She opened her mouth to explain that the salt was added by mistake, but before she could speak, Mirabelle was already moving. Mirabelle lifted the pot of hot soup with both hands. In one quick motion, she threw it across the kitchen floor. The thick red stew splattered everywhere, on the walls, the cabinets, and even on Mama Grace's legs. Mama Grace didn't flinch. She didn't shout. She simply looked down at the mess, feeling the hot liquid stain her skin. But she didn't make a sound. She didn't dare. Without a word, she grabbed a rag from the counter and started cleaning up the splashes. Slowly and carefully. Her hands shook as she wiped the floor, but she didn't let the tears come. She had learned long ago that tears only made things worse. Mirabelle stood there, watching her, her face twisted in disgust. She didn't care that Mama Grace was hurting. She didn't care that the old woman was cleaning up the mess she had made. She only cared about her own comfort. "That's what you get for being so slow," Mirabelle muttered under her breath, walking out of the kitchen. Mama Grace didn't respond. She just kept cleaning, wiping the floor with the rag, one slow, painful stroke at a time. It was a Friday evening. The sitting room was full of laughter, snacks, and loud music. Mirabelle had invited a few of her friends over, girls dressed in flashy clothes, long wigs, and expensive perfumes. They sat on the couch, sipping wine and eating small chops as they talked about trending gossip and social media drama. Mirabelle sat in the center, her voice louder than the rest. She was scrolling through her phone, laughing as she showed her friends short videos. Wait, you people must see this one, she said, waving her phone excitedly. This one is my maid. Her friends leaned closer. The screen showed a video clip of Mama Grace. She was outside, behind the house, wrapped in an old towel, quietly pouring water on herself with a small bucket. The angle of the video made it clear she didn't know she was being recorded. I locked her out by mistake that night, Mirabelle said, laughing loudly. She begged me for hours to open the door, but I just wanted to sleep. She took a long sip from her wine glass. Can you imagine? She actually bathed outside. Like an animal. Mirabelle laughed harder. I just had to record it. Look at her, she's like a live comedy show. The room went quiet for a moment. The laughter slowed. Her friends gave each other unsure glances. One of them, Ada, shifted uncomfortably on the couch. Mirabelle, are you sure you should be posting videos of her like that? She asked softly. It's kind of, I beg. Mirabelle cut her off. She doesn't even know. And besides, what's she going to do? Complain. To who? She's lucky I even let her stay here. The others forced out awkward laughs. Nobody dared to argue with her. Mirabelle smiled proudly, feeling powerful, and clicked post on her Instagram story. Mama Grace, in the small storeroom where she slept, didn't know that her pain had just become someone else's entertainment. The sun was high in the sky. The house was quiet. Kenneth had gone to work, and Mirabelle was supposed to be resting in her room. Mama Grace took the chance to clean the upstairs bedrooms. She carried a feather duster and a small cloth as she made her way to Kenneth's room. As always, she knocked gently before entering. Even though no one was inside, the air in the room smelled of cologne and fresh linen. The bed was neatly made, and the wardrobe doors were slightly open. Mama Grace moved toward them slowly, planning to dust the top shelves, but then she stopped, her eyes widened. Inside the room, standing near the wardrobe with her back half turned, was Mirabelle. She was hurriedly stuffing something into her designer handbag. Mama Grace squinted. Was that money? No. Not just money. Bundles of cash, neatly tied, and a few pieces of gold jewelry that she clearly recognized. Kenneth's wristwatch, the one his late father gave him. His chain. His ring. Mirabelle froze when she heard the footsteps. She turned her head and their eyes met. For a moment, no one spoke. You're stealing, Mama Grace whispered, her voice full of shock and disbelief. Mirabelle didn't even flinch. She slowly zipped up her handbag and turned fully to face her. Yes, she said calmly, brushing her hair behind her ear. But so what? You think anyone will believe you? Mama Grace stood there, her mouth slightly open. Her heart was beating fast. You're just a maid, Mirabel continued with a cold smile. Nobody will listen to you. She stepped closer. Her heels tapped on the tiled floor. Mama Grace didn't move. Then, slap, the sharp sting burned across Mama Grace's cheek. Her head turned slightly with the force, but she didn't fall. Kneel down, Mirabel said coldly. Mama Grace looked up at her, her lips trembling. I said kneel down. Slowly, silently, Mama Grace dropped to her knees. Her eyes stared at the floor. Her hands rested on her thighs. You saw nothing today, Mirabel said, adjusting her bag. If you talk, I'll make sure you sleep on the streets. I'll make your life hell. Then she walked past the kneeling woman and left the room, her perfume trailing behind her. Mama Grace stayed there, kneeling in silence. But deep inside her, something had changed. The evening breeze carried a strange stillness, but inside the house, tension hung heavy in the air. Mama Grace moved slowly through the hallway, holding a tray of food meant for Mirabel. Her legs felt weak. Her arms shook. The red slap mark on her face was still fresh, and her knees, bruised from earlier, barely held her weight. Still, she didn't complain. She limped into the dining room, doing her best to walk straight and not spill the food. The tray held jollof rice, chicken, and a glass of juice. The smell was rich, but Mama Grace didn't feel hunger, only pain. Mirabel sat at the head of the table, scrolling on her phone, her hair in perfect curls, nails shining like glass. As Mama Grace came closer, her shoulders hunched in fatigue, Mirabel looked up and rolled her eyes. You're so slow, she snapped. Are you 90 or what? Is this how you used to walk in your village? Mama Grace didn't respond. She just reached the table and tried to gently set the tray down, but her hands were trembling too much. As she lowered the tray, her knees gave way. A sharp pain shot through her legs. Thud, she collapsed onto the cold tile floor. The tray clattered beside her, the food spilling slightly. For a moment, the room went silent. Then came the scream from one of the younger housemaids who had just entered with a mop. Mama Grace. Auntie. She's fainting. Somebody help. Mirabel stood up but didn't rush forward. She looked more irritated than worried. She's always acting like this, she muttered. Old drama queen. But the younger maid was already running down the hallway, shouting, Oga Kenneth. Oga Kenneth. Come quick. Mama Grace has fallen. Kenneth, who was just arriving at the gate, heard the panic in her voice. Back in the dining room, Mama Grace lay still. Her breathing was shallow. Her hands were cold. For the first time in a long while, her body had said enough. Even if her mouth never did. The hospital room was cold and quiet. Machines beeped softly beside the hospital bed where Mama Grace lay unconscious. Nurses moved in and out quickly, checking her pulse and adjusting drips. Kenneth stood in the hallway, his hands shaking. He had never seen Mama Grace this weak, this pale. She had always been strong, even when quiet. But now, the doctor's words hit him like a slap. She collapsed from extreme stress, malnutrition, and physical abuse, the doctor said, looking him straight in the eyes. If she hadn't gotten here in time, she could have slipped into a coma. Kenneth's heart dropped. How did things get this bad? Just then, Mirabelle burst through the hospital doors, her hair flying behind her, tears already forming in her eyes. "Doctor, oh thank God. Has she woken up?" she asked, breathing heavily. "I'm so worried. This is so sudden." "I was just about to call someone." The doctor looked at her strangely. "She's stable now," he said slowly. "And her son is here." Mirabelle blinked. "Her what?" "Her son," the doctor repeated, pointing toward Kenneth. Mirabelle turned to Kenneth, confused. "Wait, she has a son? That old maid?" A soft cough came from the bed. They turned. Mama Grace's eyes were open. Slowly, she reached up and untied the scarf on her head, revealing her neatly combed hair. Her voice, though weak, was steady. "Yes, Mirabelle," she said calmly. "I'm not just a maid. I'm Kenneth's mother." Silence fell like thunder. Mirabelle's mouth dropped open. She froze, unable to move. Mama Grace sat up with help from a nurse. Her eyes locked onto Mirabelle's. "I've been in this house for 4 years," she said. "Watching, testing, hoping, praying that my son would marry a kind woman, one who treats even the lowest person with dignity." She sighed deeply. "But what I've seen, it's heartbreaking." Mirabelle took a step back. "No, no, no, no. Please. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know you were his mother." "But you knew I was human," Mama Grace replied. "And still, you treated me like dirt." Kenneth stepped forward now, his face filled with fury and pain. "You beat my mother," he said slowly. "You mocked her. You humiliated her. You even posted her online like she was a joke." Mirabelle's voice shook. I can explain." "And you stole from this house?" Kenneth shouted. Mirabelle gasped. "She told you that?" "She's lying." "I would never." "I saw you," Mama Grace interrupted, her voice strong now. "You had my son's money and jewelry in your bag. I begged you to stop. You slapped me and made me kneel like a beggar." Mirabelle's knees buckled. She dropped to the floor, tears spilling freely. "Please. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Please forgive me." But Kenneth looked at her with eyes full of disgust. "You only regret it because you got caught. The wedding is off. I could never marry someone who treats the weak like garbage." Mirabelle broke down completely, crying loudly. But no one moved to help her. Days later, the house was quiet again. Mirabelle's suitcase sat at the gate, her designer bag stacked beside it. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, whispering and pointing. Word had spread fast. Someone played a video on their phone, one of the cruel clips Mirabelle had posted online. Her laughter echoed through the speakers. Now, it wasn't funny. Now, the world saw the real her. She stood by the gate, her makeup smudged, her pride shattered. No car came to pick her. No friend came to defend her. Even online, people were turning against her. Her followers dropped by the minute. She had failed the test. She had lost a good man. She had lost her future. And most of all, she had lost her soul. Please subscribe, like, and also comment your thoughts. I will see you in the next video.